So the questions I asked today revolved around uncertainty. What is uncertainty? What causes it? Where does it come from? What are the effects of it on us as individuals? What do we tend to do about it? And what should we do about it? And if you have to sum it up in one line, it's that uncertainty is everywhere, but humans don't like it. And they dislike it so much that they pretend that it doesn't exist. Because most of the time you've got a pretty good idea how things are going to work out. But that attitude of pretending that it doesn't exist and then throwing our hands to our heads when it happens, when something that we haven't predicted happens, and going, oh, something must have gone wrong, I believe acts to our detriment. The more we embrace and accept uncertainty, the better results we can actually achieve. So this has a number of different manifestations. What is uncertainty? It's a ubiquitous thing that affects us all every single day, where we do not and where we cannot know exactly what the future holds. And what causes it, and why is that the case? Well, because every single thing that happens in the future is the result of a whole series of complex things that are happening right now and in the past, all of which are interacting with each other in so many different complex ways that we, and I'm going to put this far, will never, certainly not in our lifetimes, be able to accurately predict exactly what's going to happen. Do we get better? Yes, we get better. Are there experts who know better than other people? Yes, there are experts that know better than other people. But still, the complexity of the world in which we live means that tiny things can have such huge impacts and effects that there will always be things that we cannot predict, that change our lives in ways that we cannot know, and we can either reject that and pretend that it's not the case, or accept it and get better results. So what should we do? We should be like poker players. Poker players don't pretend that they don't live in uncertainty. They accept it, they embrace it, because they have to, because it's quite clear that in the middle of the table is a shuffled deck of cards. And so we have a way of calculating uncertainty. And do you know what? It's not perfect, but we think probabilistically. We say, well, this could happen or this could happen. This is more likely. We go so far as to say, this might be more likely, but you know what? I'm going to bet on this thing, because even though it's not always going to happen, even though it's going to happen less often than this thing, when it happens, I get such an enormous upside that this is the best thing to invest in. So what we're doing in poker is we're moving away from this idea that living life is all about getting the right answer. Because as soon as you move away from the idea that it can be predicted, you move away from the right answer, and you start to think in a much more, it is complex and frustrating way about how you get the best returns. So here's what I advocate, is that we have our old decision-making system, which I call D1, right? And under D1, you want what you do to work. Okay, so you want the house that you live in to be lovely, you want the part that you choose to be the person who's going to be with you for the rest of your life, you want the right school for your kids. These are really important things, okay? And that's D1. And that's a desire for this thing to work, and that is doing the thing most likely to succeed, trying to find the right answer. But we also now need this new decision-making mechanism, which is called D2, or I call it D2, which, by the way, is not my idea. This is really important. These are not the musings of a poker player. This is what decision-making science, which is a faculty in any university, there are professors in it, this is what they advocate, is that you need a way of making decisions where not every decision is going to succeed, but you now think as part of a basket or portfolio of decisions, just like someone allocating resources in the markets thinks. This might not work and this might not work, but as a whole, this I'm hoping is going to give me a good return on investment. Because what are all decisions but investment decisions which seek a return on investment? And by working in harmony with this reality of how the world really works, we can get greater returns, which means better efficiency, better productivity, more bang for our buck, doing more with less, getting where we want to faster and more effectively. Poker is a game of maths and psychology, or maths and emotion, maths and intuition, all right? The maths is always there, and I showed a calculation, that's the maths. And here's the thing about maths. You don't need to take a calculator into a casino, you will still lose money at roulette. Because the maths doesn't dictate it, it explains the result. All right? But the probability line, which in my presentation today was 25%, your assessment of that is the psychology. Now you can use data to get there, right? Use all the data that you have, but don't ignore the data of your experience, which is what we call intuition, which is the product not just of your conscious memory, but your subconscious memory, which is a much more rich source of information, but which frustratingly is kind of hard to access because we can't point to it in a spreadsheet or a database. The world champion of poker in 1977 wore a t-shirt saying, "I will do whatever the little voice inside my head tells me to do." Because when you're playing poker and you're not worrying about the gas bill and you're not thinking about that meeting at 12 o'clock, it becomes very meditative. It becomes a very zen experience. You're pushing chips across a green baize and you start to feel the right answer. It's very hard to put it. It sounds really new age, but it's not. It's just that intuition that we very often suppress in the 21st century starts to bubble up to the surface, and the more that you trust it, the better decisions that you make.